Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life, and welcome to this 1983 horror movie review video. So in this video, we're going to take a look at a movie that I watched for free on Tubi. It's actually more of a psychological thriller. That's actually how it's described. And the title of that movie is called Olivia. So let's just go ahead and talk about Olivia from 1983. So, Olivia is a 1983 American psychological thriller film directed by Ulli Lommel, and starring Susanna Love and Robert Walker Jr. It follows a young wife in London who is suffering from from homicidal schizophrenia stemming from having witnessed her prostitute mother's murder. She meets an American engineer and has a brief but heated romance with him, and several years later in Arizona he encounters a woman who resembles her but claims not to remember him. So in London, 5-year-old Olivia witnesses her prostitute mother's murder by one of her Johns, a sadomasochistic American soldier. The soldier disposes of her mother's body by throwing it into the River Thames off the London Bridge. 15 years later, Olivia is unhappily married to a domineering husband, Richard, who refuses to allow her to work. She is haunted by memories of her mother's death and frequently hears her mother's voice guiding her to make decisions. While Richard is away at work one night, Olivia dresses herself provocatively and begins to walk the street as a prostitute. She is approached by a client and returns to his home with him. There she ties him up and recreates the scenario in which her mother was murdered before beating the man to death with a vase. Meanwhile, Michael Grant, an American engineer from Los Angeles, is visiting London to perform restoration on the London Bridge. He encounters Olivia walking beneath the bridge and invites her to his hotel for drinks. The two share an emotional connection and have passionate sex. The next day, when Olivia returns home, Richard rapes her. Olivia and Michael continue to carry on a secret affair, but are discovered by Richard on the London Bridge. In a scuffle, Richard is thrown over the railing into the river below, and a terrified Olivia flees. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, the beginning of Olivia from 1983. As far as the cast goes, we have Susanna Love as Olivia slash Jenny, Robert Walker Jr. as Michael Grant, Jeff Winchester as Richard, and B.B. Hansen as Mother. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the 1983 thriller film Olivia. Um, I actually kind of enjoyed this movie, to be honest with you. I didn't know anything about it, of course. I wasn't expecting much out of it, and it's definitely not a perfect movie. Um, I was engaged with it. I really was, and I think there's several reasons for that, which I'll get into right now with my review, starting with my pros or the positives. First of all, this is a movie that's very interesting because you have the team of Ulli Lommel and Susanna Love, who of course were married in real life. They did a couple of the Boogeyman films. One which was so bad it's good, the original, and Boogeyman 2, which I don't ever plan on watching again. Um, I think this is a better movie than both of those combined, frankly. For both Yuli Lamel's directing and certainly for Susanna Love's acting. So, but anyway, the movie has an interesting mix of several genres, including slasher, giallo, thriller, and some exploitation as well. I would say that all kind of come together to make a pretty decent thriller movie. Um, Yeah, it's described as a psychological thriller, and it certainly is. But the movie definitely has those other aspects that I just mentioned here. So I kind of like a movie when they can combine multiple subgenres into the same movie. In addition to that, story wise, it also borrows. It has a lot of very Hitchcockian vibes to it, aka Vertigo, aka Psycho, aka Marnie. If you've seen any of those Hitchcock movies back from the 50s and 60s, you know what I'm talking about. This movie's got those. Some of them are pretty obvious, like the Psycho comparison with the mother and talking to a mother who's been long passed away. Vertigo with the change of identity and then rediscovery years later in a place later. What is it? The same person, isn't it? Kind of thing with Vertigo, and a little bit of Marnie in there too. Um, The movie also has sort of a dreamlike atmosphere throughout the movie that I thought was pretty effective and kept me engaged. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but part of it's the giallo feel and just the thriller feel. But overall, atmosphere wise, it's kind of dreamlike, which I rather enjoyed. Susanna Love, as I mentioned earlier, she does a really good job portraying this multi-layered character of, portraying boredom, like a bored wife, unhappy wife, a seductress, a passionate love interest, as well as sort of a crazy person for reasons that are fairly obvious if you watch the movie. So I thought she balanced and did a good job with all those different elements to her character. And I mean, let's face it, in Boogeyman and Boogeyman 2, she really doesn't have much to do. It's just kind of she's just kind of a bland character in a bland movie. But here she definitely has a chance to really stretch her chops and really show off, not only show off her acting chops, but show off her body as well. As she shows just about everything in this movie as part of the exploitation and I guess erotic thriller aspects of the movie, I would say. So yeah, Susanna Love does a great job. I also think Robert Walker Jr. is good, and Jeff Winchester, who plays just a terrible husband. Just you just hate him right off the bat. He's um, he beats her, he belittles her, he rapes her. I mean, he's truly one of the worst of society. But that actor Jeff Winchester does a really good job portraying him. I'm guessing he's not like that in real life. So yeah, good acting in this movie, which already separates it from the Boogeyman movies. I also, with Susanna Love's character, going back to her, she's obviously a character that's loose in her shoes as far as being crazy, but she's sort of sympathetic as well. At least she was to me, because you can kind of understand with, first of all, her being 5 years old and witnessing her mother's murder at the hands of a John. Um, and then also having to deal with this husband that she's married to and dealing with him and all of his abuse, both verbally, physically, everything else. It's no wonder why she does what she does and kind of changes personalities and gets into some killing and things like that. So uh, kind of more along the lines of more of a sympathetic killer, much like a Norman Bates from Psycho, if you will. That's kind of how I felt about Olivia, played by Susanna Love. I think the movie has some really nice cinematography, some really nice location filming, like the London Bridge, and the good camera work, along with having a really solid thriller kind of score. I think that all encapsulates and helps to create the atmosphere that kept me engaged throughout the movie. So yeah, all those different elements of different subgenres and acting, as well as cinematography, locations, and the score are all things that make this movie very watchable. So those are my pros for Olivia from 1983. As far as cons go, like a lot of Ulli Lommel movies, it feels a bit disjointed and unfocused in terms of having any sort of a really straight through line. It's kind of more like he throws a bunch of interesting things at the screen and hoping that enough of them sticks, which I will say more of them stick in this movie than in the Boogeyman movies. Again, I enjoy the original Boogeyman as a so bad it's good movie. But it's not a good movie. This is certainly a better made, better productive production kind of movie. And I don't know if the budget was higher for this. I actually didn't look at what the budget was. It feels like it's higher. But it's just overall, it's just not a very tight final product of a movie. And that's kind of what you come to expect with Ulli Lommel movies. Like I said, while this one is better, it still feels disjointed. I didn't really feel any suspense or tension throughout the movie. I would kind of describe this movie more as a character study, much like a Christmas Evil or even elements of Psycho, although there's more suspense in the Psycho movies by Hitchcock. Here, I just didn't really feel a lot of like edge of my seat thrills or suspense, or certainly horror going on here. And then my final comments, I think the kills in the movie, there are a few. They're just okay. The best one has to do with an electric toothbrush, which basically somebody is choked to kind of like stabbed or choked to death down their throat. You see blood in the sink as a result. That's probably the best kill. Otherwise, it's stabbing and it's banging somebody's head against the wall, and nothing crazy with the kill, and certainly no gore, really. A little bit of blood, but from a slasher element standpoint to this movie, if you're going into it thinking you're going to see some great slasher kills, I would advise you against expecting that going into it. But all that being said, guys, I actually kind of enjoyed Olivia. I don't know if I'm going to add it to my collection yet. I'll have to see what the price for it is and if there's even an available DVD or Blu-ray for it. But I'm going to give Olivia a 6.5 out of 10. It's not. It doesn't break the mold. It's not. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything. But as sort of a thriller goes, as a good character study sort of thriller, with different elements, different subgenres, as I mentioned. I think it's pretty good. It's definitely worth checking out. I would recommend it, especially as a free watch on Tubi. You can. I don't know if it's on YouTube or not. I watched it on Tubi, but 6.5 out of 10 for Olivia by Ulli Lommel with Susanna Love. Um, I should mention too, as I said, that Susanna Love shows all, and there's also some pretty, not necessarily graphic kills. The graphic nature of this movie, I would say, comes from the nudity and the sex scenes. So just kind of know that going in. But anyway, 6.5 out of 10 for Olivia. Comment down below if you've seen this movie before, if you have any thoughts on it. Does it work for you? Does it not? Is it thriller or more? Let me know. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content on my channel going forward. But with all that being said, we're off and running here in August for my 1983 horror movies. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. And as always, stay scared. Bye.